With this here, this ain't about being flashy. This is game day, son. It's only about one thing. Getting that W. That's the only thing that matters right now. Boy, are you ready?
The past is the past, you know? It's a new day, bro. My day. Gotta do it now.
Blindside Fantasy Football Podcast back for another episode. Matt, how's it going?
Another Tuesday night. Let's do it.
Yep, another Tuesday. Another tons of stuff to go over. Starting off with breaking news that happened probably about half an hour ago now. Aaron Hernandez being questioned in a homicide in North Attleboro, Massachusetts. Supposedly they don't think that he's the murder suspect, but that the potential murderer, I guess you'd say, was driving around in his rented 2013 Chevy Suburban that he rented from Enterprise with Rhode Island plates on it. I guess it's a key piece in their evidence and their investigation. Matt, what do you make of all this?
This was news to me when I actually got over here tonight. First, why is he renting a car? First of all,
I didn't really get that either. They showed the article I read showed a picture of his house, and it was like this giant mansion.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, so North Attleboro, I mean, you and I know from being in New England, not 40 minutes from Boston. You know, it's 40 miles south of Boston.
Yep.
So, yeah, why are you renting a car when you probably live there when the season's going on? It's a giant mansion. It's not like you own multiple houses that big. And then with Rhode Island plates. So you rented it in Rhode Island just to bring it back to your giant house that you own close to your team. I didn't really get all that either.
I'm not even about to speculate. I have no clue. We'll see what happens with this. I guess Tim Tebow's name. No, I'm just kidding. Screw Tim Tebow.
Yeah, maybe you're saying maybe this is the reason they signed Tebow.
Yeah.
Like they saw this coming, like, well, you know, Gronk is hurt and Hernandez, he's going to murder a bitch.
Well, I think I said last week, the only way we're ever going to hear Tebow's name again for the Patriots was if Gronkowski broke his forearm while punching Hernandez. So this is, I guess, kind of something as crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting there.
We'll see what happens.
Getting a little crazy. Other big news, though, Victor Cruz finally signs his tender. It's a 1-year, $630,000 tender. Obviously not what he's looking for. He reportedly wants $9 million a year in a new contract, which seems moderately reasonable, I guess, after you see people like Dwayne Bowe and Mike Wallace getting $10 to $11 million a year. You know, do you think this sitting out is going to hurt him?
I don't think the sitting out is going to hurt him at all. There's plenty of time left until the games. You know, he's got a good rapport with Manning in New York. So, no, I don't think it's going to be an issue. I don't know what kind of a guy he is as far as how hard he works, but I imagine coming from where he came from to be where he is today, it's a situation where he probably isn't going to be in good shape. He's probably been working out. He hasn't been just sitting on his couch. So I don't think it's an issue at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the conditioning of Hakeem Nicks I'd be more worried about with all of his injuries and him kind of sitting out a little bit. I think I'm more worried about him sitting out than the little bit that Cruz has sat out so far.
Yep.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that Cruz isn't happy with signing this tender because he waited until signing it. And they're still trying to work out a long-term deal, and hopefully it gets done. But
you know, my job, if I'm looking to get more money, I usually
show up to work and do a good job.
Get a
little early.
So, my point is going to be, yeah, he might be a little bit upset, but he wants to play well so that he can say, "Listen, give me that fucking $9 million.
I thought your
I'm
point,
worth it."
I thought your point was going to be you're not Victor Cruz.
No.
Thought that's where you're going with that, but no, apparently not. Other news: Willis McGahee finally gets cut for the Broncos. I think everybody saw this coming, including probably McGahee himself. And that's probably part of the reason why he was sitting out of OTAs and everything. You know, Hillman and Ball were definitely staying. You could tell that both of them had the writing on the wall if they were staying. Moreno's inexpensive rookie contract kind of made sure that he stays around for another year. So that kind of made, you know, the aging McGahee coming off the knee injury, you know, kind of made him the odd man out. I personally think he still gets another shot in the NFL somewhere. I know he's pretty much old man McGahee at this point.
He's been done for how many years now? Ray Rice took over him coming out of college.
Yeah,
then came back with a vengeance.
I think he's still got something in the tank.
I agree.
For me, I think I don't know where you think the perfect fit is. For me, I think the perfect fit is San Diego. I think Ryan Matthews is soft and always gets banged up. And
you wouldn't say that to his face, I bet.
Oh no, he'd MJD me if I said it to his face.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
He'd jump up and punch me probably. But I think Matthews is soft and always getting hurt. And the closest thing they got to a backup is Danny Woodhead. And God, you do not want Danny Woodhead as your feature back. That's all I got to say to that. I mean,
yeah, what a call! I agree with you there.
I think that's
like a perfect spot.
That is the perfect landing spot. Somewhere where he can be the number 2 veteran guy to a younger guy, but be that solid guy that he needs to be if the younger guy gets hurt. I think other possible landing spots. I think St. Louis, just because they could use some veteran leadership. I know that backfield's already pretty crowded there, but I think he could give some veteran leadership there and maybe be the first and second down back with Zach Stacy being the third down back. Or possibly Miami, just because, Daniel Thomas has concussion injuries happening, fumble problems happening all the time. Lamar Miller, I know he's supposedly the guy, but he still hasn't played that much in the NFL. He's not quite proven yet. So, that could be another landing spot. But like I said, I think the number 1 spot that makes the most sense for everybody is San Diego.
Yeah, I could see Miami as well. There's 3 young running backs there, all kind of, trying to prove themselves. So, again, a good situation where he'd be a nice veteran presence there. But I do like your San Diego idea.
I think it makes the most sense
We'll see if you're a genius come a week or 2 from now.
We'll see if I should be an NFL GM or not.
Yeah, there you go.
But going back to Denver, now that McGahee's out, Hillman's getting 75% of the first team reps, with Ball getting the other 25%. Hillman says he can carry the load, but what's he gonna say? It's not like you're gonna be the guy getting all the first team reps and be like, you know what, I don't think I can do this, boss. I don't think I can handle this.
Of course.
Of course he's gonna say that. I think it's potential that Hillman starts week 1. But I think Ball takes over easily by week 4 or 5. I think it's early on that Ball takes over and runs with this. I don't think it's by any means ironic that the same day they cut McGahee was the same day they signed Ball. I think this was planned. They knew this was going to happen when they signed Ball. They knew, all right, we got Ball. McGahee's out of here. We're keeping the other guys around. I thought it was ironic to see that Ball is actually 10 months older than Hillman. I thought that was kind of ironic that he's coming in as the rookie, but he's actually older than Hillman.
Well, I think I talked about it actually a few weeks ago on one of the podcasts. He got a tremendous amount of work in college. He was almost like a kid not coming out as a rookie with the amount of work he got. So that, to me, isn't completely surprising. He came out as a senior. I know Hillman came out early. I think Hillman getting 75% of the first team carries is a little bit surprising to me, just all the talk you were hearing about Ball. It could be just a simple case of the veteran Hillman there, a little bit better with the offense right now, getting the work so that things can go a little more fluid. But, that could be saying something there. Hillman's a guy that is exciting. The flashes you've seen from him, he's a guy that kind of makes you hold your breath. He can kind of, show that speed, make people miss. But Ball is going to be, I think, more of a guy that could carry the load, as Hillman says he can do. So I think I agree with you that he'll eventually kind of become the guy, but I think it's going to be pretty split. And I wouldn't know right now which one I would pick. Again, preseason is going to be a big help with that situation.
Yeah, John Fox does like his running back by committees. We saw that in Carolina. He likes having a bunch of running backs, having them around.
Especially when they're two good ones.
Yeah, hopefully this doesn't turn into a D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart type situation, because I want to see what Monty Ball can do.
Yep.
But speaking of running backs getting the first team reps, Rashard Mendenhall getting all the first team reps with the Cardinals. I think this is very significant because Arians has already said that he doesn't want a running back by committee this year. He wants a bell cow back. So, I think that's got to put Mendenhall a lot higher on the boards than where he's going. Right now, running back 26, being taken off the board at the end of the 5th round. If he is a bell cow back, you got to be taking him earlier than the end of the 5th round, right?
You're kind of saying, hey, Matt, you were right on this one, I think is what I just heard.
No, that's not what I was saying at all.
Because that's what I've been saying, since the beginning of these podcasts. He's a guy I've been excited about. There's been a lot of good talk from him out of camp. I think it was the offensive coordinator. He's now over there in Arizona. He was with Mendenhall in Pittsburgh. They like what they see from him, and I do as well. I have, since he's been in the league. So it's going to be exciting to see what he's going to do. And if you can get him at running back number 26, I think that's a huge steal. Like you said, anytime you can get a starter that's the bell cow.
In the 5th round, the end of the 5th round?
That's a guy you can start every day. If he's going to get 20 touches, I'm playing him every week.
I mean, look at other, bell cow backs, I guess you want to call them, that haven't yet proven themselves. The Lamar Millers and the David Wilsons. Those guys are going in the 3rd and 4th round. So if you can get him in the end of the 5th, I'm taking that all day, every day. So earlier we talked about one New England tight end. Now we're moving on to another. Gronkowski, I feel like this is like the weekly Gronkowski corner that we're just talking about him every week. But another week, another surgery for this guy. He had back surgery again today. I saw this week some Yahoo analysts rate him as low as the tight end number 9. You think he's dropping that quick, that fast?
No way. Who is this Yahoo analyst? You should have got his name. He's crazy.
I think it was Scott Piowski.
Really?
And I think Brad Evans was the other one. He had him at like tight end number 7. So big name guys, like not schmucks like us.
Maybe they're ranking for if the draft was today. I mean,
but still tight end 9,
I hear
tight end
this
7. That's what I'm saying. Crazy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's too early right now to get that crazy about this.
I mean, I think my tight end 7 right now is Dennis Pitta range.
I think between 2 and 3, which Gronkowski's my 2, is a huge difference. It's too early right now to drop him 6-7 spots from that.
That's crazy. Nuts. I mean, my tight end 7 I think is Dennis Pitta, and I am taking Rob Gronkowski and his back and forearm problems all day over Dennis Pitta.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we're talking about a guy that's had double-digit touchdowns each of the last 3 years. I am taking that all day, every day as my tight end 7, tight end 9. That's crazy.
I think this is his 4th surgery of the off season, though, if I saw
something
correctly.
Like that.
So
like I said,
that is nerve-wracking.
It's a surgery a week for this guy. It's amazing. More talking about surgeries for tight ends here. Heath Miller, coming off a knee surgery back that he had on January 2nd. They're saying he may not be ready for the season opener. He actually finished last year as the number 4 fantasy tight end, and he's currently coming off the board as the 16th tight end. What do you think of Heath Miller this year? I recently took him in a league because he produced last year, and I think without Mendenhall, they don't have a proven running game. Without Mike Wallace there, it's going to be more Antonio Brown and more Heath Miller in the red zone.
Yeah, last year he produced for sure, and he's actually always been a pretty solid guy. Last year was a good year for sure, but I think I agree with you. They've lost a few weapons there. I don't know if you want to call Mendenhall a weapon in Pittsburgh the last year and a half or so, but like you said, they're losing that established running game that they had with him prior to that. They're losing Mike Wallace, who was really the number 1 target there.
I mean, for me, this is what I'm getting at, is with losing Wallace, there's going to be more targets for Heath Miller in between the 20s. And then when they get in the red zone, they showed last year with no running game, Heath Miller is their red zone guy. Instead of handing the ball off, they're going to hit Heath Miller on a slant or something like that. So I think, again, the running game isn't proven yet. You got Le'Veon Bell, he's a rookie. And then beyond that, Jonathan Dwyer and company, same guys as last year. So he's going to get the same amount of red zone targets as last year, more targets in between the 20s. He finished as the tight end 4 last year, so getting him at tight end 16, that's crazy value.
Well, I mean, it is you got to, he may not be ready for the season opener. There's a worry there, but I think if he was at 16, it's incredible because say week 4 he's healthy, he's there. For me, that's a guy I'm okay with as my starting tight end, no problem at all.
Yeah.
Better than a lot of other guys. If I could see the list of the 15 ahead of him.
For me in the draft that I took him in, I mean, if you wait on tight end and you don't get the Gronk and you don't get Graham and stuff like that, if you wait and you're able to pick him up late, I think that's great. And if for the first 3-4 weeks of the year you have to pick up a waiver wire type tight end and start him, you got to pick up a Tyler Eifert or somebody like that, or Rob Hausler. Stick them in there and go with them for a couple weeks. I'm doing that, and then going over to Miller come week 4.
I agree.
So more injuries. I feel like every time we have podcasts, all we're talking about is injuries in these OTAs.
Well, I mean, Jesus, it's this time of the season. What are we going to talk about? What they had for spaghetti lunch dinner?
The amount of targets they had in OTAs.
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of what fills the airwaves.
Yeah,
this time of year.
But so Santonio Holmes telling the media that, about his Liz Frank surgery that he had in the offseason. It was a grade 4 injury, which is the most serious kind, meaning it was a muscle tear and joint separation in his midfoot. He had screws and a plate removed in March, but he will have 2 screws in his foot permanently. Holmes has been very non-committal about being ready week 1, and some analysts are saying that he's going to start the year on the PUP list. Again, in one of my pay leagues that I just got done drafting, I drafted him in the beginning of the 16th round in a PPR league. What do you think of that? Too high? Too low?
I'm not even going to bother with him. It's been a while since he's been relevant in the league as far as fantasy football, really. Especially with the injury concerns, starting the year on the PUP list possibly. 16 isn't bad, but I would almost rather reach for a guy who, a high upside type guy. I don't think there's any high upside in Santonio Holmes anymore, so not a guy I draft.
Tell me this. I mean, obviously somebody in the Jets is going to be the wide receiver 1. Who's it going to be? Do you think it's Stephen Hill? Do you think it's definitely Stephen Hill now?
I don't know if it's definitely. I don't know exactly the progression that he's had this year. I think physically the tools are there for him to certainly be the number 1, and if not this year, in the certain near future. So having Holmes not around isn't going to help him, I don't think. Holmes is a solid player when he's out there. He's a veteran. He knows, the running the routes. So I think I would, if you ask me who we're going to take first in a draft, Holmes or Stephen Hill, it's not even close.
Do you think it's still Stephen Hill?
Yeah, absolutely.
See, I battled with that because I kept saying that. I'm like, is it Santonio?
Was he available then?
He was still available.
Really?
He's still.
That's why I would have been, the upside. That's why I'm thinking upside. You could get a number 1 receiver. Crazy, probably not, but possible with Hill. I don't think
you know how much I like Hill. I mean, I wrote about why I think he's going to be a breakout receiver this year.
I'm surprised you took him.
It's a PPR league, so I figured he's going to get more receptions.
Yeah.
Whereas Hill does have the crazy upside. Looking back at it, I probably should have
who's
stuck
healthy
with my
right now,
Yeah, I mean...
If it's that close, but... Especially with all the talk you've had of Hill, it surprises me.
Well, see, my problem with Hill a little bit is I love Hill this year, but I loved him with Sanchez, because Sanchez loves his big receivers.
Yep.
And, there's a strong chance Geno is the starter. So if Geno's the starter, maybe it goes back to Holmes. Maybe Holmes is the number 1 guy. He's proven year after year that he's the number 1 guy for them. Not that that's really meant anything, but he's been the number 1 guy. So I think this was kind of hedging a little bit that in the beginning I think Geno's going to be the starter. It seems to be they drafted him high. They don't have high hopes for Sanchez, and I think Geno's going to like Holmes a lot better than Hill. If I knew Sanchez was going to be the starter, it would have been Hill, no question. I wouldn't have even thought about this. We wouldn't even be talking about this right now. It'd be Hill. We'd be done with it. We'd be over. We'd be on to the next topic. But
I could see it differently where Hill's a young guy, Smith's a young guy. I could see them having a little bit more of a bond off the field, making the on-the-field thing a good situation too.
Yeah, it could happen. So Bruce Arians told reporters that the Fitzgerald situation reminds him a lot of the Reggie Wayne situation last year. If you don't remember, Reggie Wayne last year finished with 106 catches for 1,355 yards and 5 touchdowns and became the wide receiver 15 for fantasy. Right now, Fitz is being drafted as the wide receiver 8 in the middle of the 3rd round. We know how I feel about him. I got him as a top 5 wide receiver this year. I have him right at number 5. I'm expecting big things for him. I wrote another guy I wrote an article about. I see big things with Arians, Palmer, inside all the time. Fitzgerald has the talent. Now finally has the quarterback. At the middle of the 3rd round, is he being overdrafted, underdrafted? Where are you taking him? What's the earliest you're going to take him at?
Where did I have him in my rankings? Do you have those with you?
Like I know your rankings off the top of my head. Come
on.
You should know your rankings.
A lot of time here. I know, right? I should. That's funny. So I think that's a little late for me. I'm excited about what he's going to be doing this year. We've talked about it a bunch. I don't even really want to get into it anymore. We're excited about the Cardinals with Arians there, airing it out, and with Palmer, a big-armed guy who is one who can force some passes and is willing to force some passes. Especially being that he's a veteran, he's got to know, hey, let's just get the ball to Larry Fitzgerald. That's going to be good things. So
I think he easily puts up Reggie Wayne numbers from last year.
Oh, yeah, and I think there's more touchdowns.
Yeah, he's younger than Wayne. He's more talented than Wayne. I'm not going to say he is a better quarterback because last year, obviously, Andrew Luck, I think, was a lot better than Palmer is.
I agree.
But I think he's the better receiver. So I think he's going to outperform Reggie Wayne's numbers last year.
He's a much bigger red zone threat, too.
Yeah, I think the five touchdowns Wayne had last year, Fitzgerald will be up to 8 to 10. I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's right back in the top for me.
Yeah, I mean receptions and yardage I think will be pretty close to what Wayne had, but the touchdowns are definitely going to jump up to like an 8 to 10 type range. So I know this isn't really fantasy relevant, but it is. Vonta Leach, the former fullback for the Ravens, obviously out of a job after the Ravens cut him, and he's looking to find a team. Getting interest from the Chiefs and the Dolphins, but says he'd prefer to go back to the Texans. Only reason why I say that this is fantasy relevant is for the last 2 years he's been the fullback that's led the way for Ray Rice, and the previous 2 years before that, Arian Foster. So, again, if he lands with the Chiefs, I am so all in on Jamal Charles this year. I mean, I think I beat this horse to death, but I am just loving him. Do you think this has... Does his landing spot have any impact on you and that running back?
No.
Pro Bowl fullback, blocking fullback has no...
Listen, there's a reason he was cut. The NFL is just
He was cut because they didn't want to pay him the money.
Yeah, the NFL
not because
is
he's not
going away.
talented.
He's a good player. Absolutely. He's as good as it gets, but the NFL is going away from the lead back offense, the fullbacks. It's not a... He was in... I read a Super Bowl. I think he was in 22 or 24 offensive snaps.
Really?
He was not utilized in that offense. So, yeah, maybe he was with Ray Rice for the last 2 years, but how often was he really used? The NFL just doesn't use it. It's not the smash mouth football you used to see. So, Charles, I think, is more of a guy... Being patient sometimes isn't his number one situation. He's a guy that wants to hit the hole and go. So, having a big guy in front of him that he's got to kind of wait for. It will spring some things for sure, but I think he's more a guy you want to get in space, not between the tackles where a fullback's going to be. So that's not a big deal for me.
I would just be really interested to see how that would work out, having a guy like that in front of him for the between the tackle stuff. Maybe when you know you're doing the stretch play, take Vonta Leach out. Sorry. I just think that could be really interesting. It could open up some big holes up the middle for Charles if they decide to utilize him that way. So more minicamp stuff. Ryan Broyles is now expected to be the wide receiver 3 for the Lions. He's going to be the guy behind Nate Burleson, at least to start the beginning of the year. How long do you think it's going to be before he passes Nate Burleson? Or are you going to be drafting Burleson ahead of Broyles this year? Or does this not matter because the offense goes through Calvin Johnson and only Calvin Johnson?
Him being the wide receiver number 3, I don't think is any surprise with Young out of there. Broyles was a great college player at Oklahoma, and I'm excited about what he's going to do. I followed Detroit quite a bit last year, just having Calvin on my team.
And you liked Titus Young last year.
I did like Titus Young. I didn't realize what kind of a person he was off the field at the time. I think Broyles is a very talented player who's a guy that's not going to be having the off-field issues. He's more polished than Titus Young for sure. So I'm excited about him. I think I would take Broyles ahead of Burleson just because I'm not going to start either one of them, and I want to have a guy who's got a more of a potential to be a pretty solid player. Burleson's definitely going to produce. He always does, but I think Broyles has the potential to have a higher ceiling.
Broyles does have more upside, and I think being the wide receiver 3, that, like you said, really doesn't matter too. I mean, obviously it matters in some offenses, but I think T.Y. Hilton last year showed us that a wide receiver 3 can outperform a wide receiver 2.
Yep.
Because T.Y. Hilton definitely put up better numbers than Donnie Avery did. But more minicamp stuff. Tavon Austin working out as a starter. No surprises there for me. I mean, you took him with the number 8 pick for a reason. He should be a starter, especially when you lose 2 of your starting wide receivers, or 2 of your wide receivers, I should say. To free agency. That really didn't surprise me much, but just thought it was a little noteworthy. Miles Austin says he thinks the rest helped his hamstrings. In other news, that's obvious, Miles Austin.
Yeah,
I mean, Come on, guy.
Don't you think they probably helped the hamstring last year too, and the year before? He's just always popping up with these strains, and of course it helped the hamstrings. Really,
he was quoted as saying it's one of those things where you can't not do it and then do it and tell the difference. But I feel good now.
Right, and in English language, I'm not sure what he was trying to say.
That's NFL talk for I'm a football player. Let me go out there and play now. Here's the thing, though. This is what I found interesting. The 36th wide receiver off the board, middle of the 8th round. I love him higher. I would draft him before that all day long.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He is one of those guys that has been always injured the last 2 years, but when he plays, he is a stud.
Yeah, he is.
He reminds me a lot of.
And there's a stud on the other side of him too. So
yeah, I mean he puts up numbers when he plays, and obviously you're going to know when the guy plays and when he doesn't. So if I'm drafting him knowing that I'm going to get him for 10 to 12 games a year, and I know I'm going to be able to start him in those 10 to 12 games, he's going to put up wide receiver 1 numbers, I'm going to take that in the 8th round and find a replacement guy for the other 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, it surprises me he's falling that far.
36.
I think that's going to change as the season
wide
gets
receiver
closer.
36 is just that is just crazy. So low.
If the receiver on the other side, Bryant's going to get over 2,000 yards, how much more really is there for Austin? You know?
Well, that's not really going to happen.
Well, that's what Bryant said. At least.
I know. It's just like Peterson is 2,500 yards. It's wishful thinking.
And there's a defensive end too. I forget the name now. 50 sacks this year. He's going to have.
Oh yeah.
God, we're going to be the biggest podcast in the world by the end of the season.
This is going to be a great entertaining year. It's going to be this NFL year is going to remind me a lot of Major League Baseball in like '97 when McGuire and Bonds were both breaking home run records. That's what's going to happen this year. All these crazy records are going to happen. Apparently.
Yeah, that'd be exciting.
And then there'll be HGH conversations in like 5 years from now.
No, I hope not.
So Geno Smith is saying he's having problems learning the offensive system, saying that the West Coast offense is nothing like West Virginia's. Day 1 of minicamp, Sanchez got all the first team reps. Day 2 of minicamp, Smith got all the first team reps. Who do you think starts week 1 for the Jets?
I think Smith. Sounds like a controversy to me, obviously, right now. Quarterback competition, I should say. Obviously, with the days being split up. Of course, the offense is going to be hard to pick up. It's a completely new offense, and he's a rookie. All accounts are, I guess they are a little bit jumbled on this, but from the guy, my trusted sources, I could say.
Oh, you're one of those sources guy, aren't you?
Yeah, he's a guy that definitely can pick it up. He was at the Trent Dilfer camp for quarterbacks over the summer, and Dilfer was absolutely amazed. He says he was the only mentor who got the whole entire playbook, had it memorized front to back, and that's something they weren't even asked to do. So I don't think that's a big deal. He's obviously going to have trouble. It's the beginning of the year. I think he's going to start week 1. You've seen Sanchez and what he can do, what he can't do, I should say. So why not?
See, I think Sanchez is going to be the starter just because he knows the playbook. They're going to let him play it out a couple weeks just to see how it goes. And then they're going to turn to Smith. And I think they turn to Smith around week 4, week 5. Mm-hmm. I think they let Sanchez hang himself just enough that the media gets all over him again and gives them the reason to give him the boot. Because I think if they just cut him this year, not cut him, but you know what I'm saying, like move him to the second team, do all that without giving him a fair chance, then there's if Smith struggles right off the bat, they're going to have all that controversy back, bring Sanchez back, blah, blah, blah. I think they're going to just dangle enough rope out there to let Sanchez hang himself, and that's when they bring Smith in and then cut their ways at the end of the year. But this brings up a good little topic. Would you, if you were an NFL GM, would you rather have Geno Smith and Mark Sanchez or E.J. Manuel and Kevin Kolb?
Manuel and Kolb.
Yeah, me too. All day. I just think I honestly liked Kolb and what he did with Arizona last year. They went 4-0 when he was healthy. He did good, and I think Manuel eventually is going to be the much better prospect than Geno Smith. I think he's got a lot more to offer. I like the fact that he can run a pistol-type offense, and I think that's the way the NFL is going to be going. And I like that he's going to be one of the first guys to bring it to the AFC, and I think that's going to be real interesting. And I'd much rather have those two guys. Blaine Gabbert expected to be the starter for the Jaguars. Moving Chad Henne back to the bench, I guess, now that Gabbert's healthy again. Does this affect your value of Justin Blackmon or Cecil Shorts? I mean, obviously this has no value for Blaine Gabbert because unless you're in a QB sucks league and you're taking Blaine Gabbert maybe number 1 overall next to Sanchez, I think this has no effect on Blaine Gabbert's value because you're not drafting him. But what about Blackmon and Shorts?
No, it has no value effect to me. Blaine
No,
Gabbert.
but seriously.
Yeah, I mean, well, because I figured Blaine Gabbert was going to be a starter.
Ugh.
When I did my rankings, I figured this just because he's the prized rookie. I mean, well, not rookie, sorry, but he's the prized first round draft pick that the organization needs to succeed. So he's going to be given every opportunity he can. Chad Henne hasn't proven it. He's been in the league. You know what you have with him. They really hope they got that first round draft pick right with Blaine. So they're going to give him another chance. I expected that. That's what I figured when I ranked Blackmon and Shorts.
See, I loved Shorts last year with Chad Henne. He really came into his own last year with Henne. I think this hurts Shorts big time. I think even Blackmon came on, to his own at the end there. But both those guys, I mean, Henne was just a much, much better passer than Gabbert will ever be.
I agree with you there.
And it's just so disappointing because Blackmon and Shorts did so well at the end of the year. I'd love to see what they could do in a full year with Chad Henne. I think they'd be so much better. So other quarterback news: Tavares Jackson signs back with Seattle. You'll probably have more to talk about this because you know all about your old Minnesota Vikings and your Tavares Jacksons, but he seems to fit their system a lot better than their current backup, Brady Quinn. Worked with Darrell Bevell back in Minnesota and Seattle. What do you make of this?
There's a familiarity there, obviously, with Bevell. He was in Seattle a few years ago as the starting quarterback. So what do I make of this? Nothing. It doesn't matter for fantasy football.
Yeah, you're right. It really has no fantasy relevance unless Russell Wilson gets hurt.
Yeah.
But I think he's the perfect guy to take over.
Great backup.
if Russell Wilson gets hurt because he runs that same style offense. Kind of the reason why I was surprised that a team like San Francisco went with Colt McCoy as their potential backup to Kaepernick. You need to get that same style of guy that can run that offense if your QB1 gets hurt and can just shove right in there and play the same offense and not have to come up with a new playbook for him. So I think it's a perfect fit for Seattle. Good to see him back there. Obviously, he's never going to push Russell Wilson for the starter position.
Nope.
But I definitely think he pushes Brady Quinn out. So moving into a little bit more of the fantasy football here. Matt and I are in a Dynasty League together, and I did a trade this week that I thought was pretty interesting that I wanted to bring up. And then kind of wanted to review one of Matt's trades that he had from last year that kind of affected our draft that we just had. I was very interested by this. In Dynasty Leagues, I love Josh Gordon, and I love Darius Hayward-Bay. I mean, I talked about Darius Hayward-Bay a couple weeks ago on our podcast and how I got him in one of my Dynasty Leagues, and it's just one of those guys that I'm targeting. So, again, I think we've talked a little bit about Mike Wallace, and I don't feel good about Mike Wallace this year. So I offered Shane Vereen and Mike Wallace for Josh Gordon, Darius Hayward-Bay, and the 4th pick in the rookie draft, the 4th overall pick in the rookie draft. And I couldn't believe it. The other owner counter-offered and said, Shane Vereen and your 5th pick overall, Josh Gordon, his 4th pick overall, and then the 4th pick in the 3rd round. And I thought that was unbelievable value. I mean, the 5th pick overall ended up being DeAndre Hopkins, and me getting the 4th pick, I went with Monty Ball because we've talked about him in depth now. He's going to be the guy, especially in Dynasty with McGahee being gone. I couldn't believe that. I mean, Vereen, you're talking about Vereen for Gordon, basically, and then I move up a pick in the 1st round and pick up a 3rd round pick. I mean, you're in this league. What did you think of it as another owner in this league?
Yeah, I love the trade for you.
I don't know what this guy was thinking.
No, I mean, he must have, maybe he's got an inside scoop on the Vereen situation in New England, and we don't know it, but
maybe.
I agree with you. That's an awesome trade. Ball, I would rather have than Hopkins all day long. Give me that extra pick, and then Gordon versus Vereen, again, not even close.
PPR league, too, so it was just incredible. Crazy. But, I mean, if you had to pick between one of those two deals, would you have taken my original offer or done that counter offer? If you were him, which would you have rather had? Would you have rather had the Mike Wallace and Shane Vereen?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I didn't really get that. I mean, the the difference in this was it's the equivalent of Mike Wallace for Darius Hayward-Bay and a first-round pick. And I would have thought he would have jumped all over that.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me, but I mean, I loved it. I jumped all over it.
Kind of worked out very well for you.
I thought it was very funny how he was actually the guy pushing the commissioner, hey, push it through, let's get this done. And I was like, as soon as he realized I accepted this, he's going to realize the mistake he made, but apparently he didn't. Hopefully he doesn't listen to my podcast because I hope to trade rape him a little bit more later in the year. So hopefully he's not listening in, at least to this podcast. Hopefully, maybe he's a download and doesn't listen type of guy.
Yeah, one of those guys.
Let's hope so. But going back to it, like I said, Matt made a trade in this league last year. I wanted to kind of go back to it because it involved a couple of draft picks, and like I said, we're in our draft right now. Last year he gave up Colin Kaepernick, Miles Austin, and a first-round pick at the beginning of the year for RG3 and a second-round pick this year, which I gotta tell you, I was all on board with this because Kaepernick, obviously, at the beginning of last year, he was a backup. He was a nobody.
I don't think it was really even the beginning of last year, but it was still midway
off
through the
season.
season.
No, it was off season.
Was it?
I checked it. It was in the off season. It was before the season started.
Oh, wow, okay.
So, at the beginning of the year, I was slapping you on the back for this one. I couldn't believe it. I mean, Kaepernick, he's a backup, showed no signs of being the starter. So you basically gave up a first-round pick and Miles Austin to get RG3.
Right.
Which, I mean, God, 8 weeks into last year seemed awesome. And then the tables kind of turned for you a little bit.
Yeah, woo.
And then
talk about that last trade, how it worked out pretty well for you. I don't know about this one for me.
Yeah, and then it just kind of make matters worse. Your first round pick ended up being the first pick overall in the rookie draft.
Yeah, my team was awful, but we'll put it in a little bit of context. This is a league that I got invited to last year to kind of fill a spot that somebody had left. You entered this league a few years ago.
Yep.
I hate the rules in this league.
Yeah, the rules need to be changed.
You've had to beg me 10 times to not just drop out of this, and I'm not one to leave like that, but I mean, they just do some things that I'm not going to waste the time of everybody and go over it. But just a league that I don't have a lot of fun in. We've talked about it.
You got a good team.
Yeah, we've talked about some changes, and they're making some for this year. And it is a dynasty league, so those are always fun. And I do have some solid, positional players. RG3, yeah, he's hurt. I'm excited about him, of course.
McCoy.
Yep,
Megatron.
McCoy, I got Megatron, I got Julio Jones.
Oh, yeah, Julio.
I got LaShawn. Oh, we already talked about LaShawn McCoy. My running back situation's kind of weak. Would have been nice to have this first pick in the draft this year.
Speaking of which, though, I got to say, I mean, when you did get your first pick in the draft this time around, second round first pick, Zach Stacy, congratulations. That's awesome, huh? I can't believe he lasted to the second round.
I was excited, especially with the running backs on my team. I got McCoy, and then my next best running back is like a Vic Ballard type guy, so yeah, I'm hurting there. It was nice to see. He may not get the job,
not right away,
right? But he's got potential, and we're talking Dynasty, so it's exciting. And then to get in the third pick in the second round to get Tyler Eifert was also exciting for me because my tight ends are horrendous. I have Dallas Clark, who I think is in some retirement home somewhere, and I have. Who's the other tight end I got? God, they're terrible.
We got Dustin Keller right
there. Oh, Keller, yeah. Keller, who knows? We'll see about him, but he can't stay on the field. So Eifert was exciting for me.
Yeah, I like Eifert. I think Eifert has a strong possibility of being the number 2 receiver for the Bengals this year.
The thing that made it tough for me to pick him, even though I had such a glaring need, is I still believe in Gresham, and he's a young guy in Cincinnati, so it's going to be a situation where you have 2 tight ends who I think are going to be eating pieces of the cake. It's tough because they're not an extremely productive position, so if you're splitting it,
see, I think if they liked Gresham, they wouldn't have drafted Eifert with a first-round pick. I mean, that's saying something when you draft somebody with the first-round pick. There's not a lot of trust in that other guy unless you think both guys are going to produce and it's going to be an Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski type situation.
So in all these, the trade ended up being Kaepernick, Miles Austin, and Tavon Austin for RG3 and Tyler Eifert. Obviously, looking at it now, I don't know if it's the best trade, but when I did it, it certainly was, and we'll see if RG3 comes back with a vengeance and Tyler Eifert becomes what they obviously think he's going to be in Cincinnati, and who knows? We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we still got another round of the rookie draft to go, so there's still a lot to be said. But speaking of drafts, the Blindside football team is going to be doing their first mock draft coming up here. We just filled it up. We actually just started it tonight. We got 12.
My pick right now, actually.
Yeah, it is your pick. You gotta jump on that. And your 8-hour time limit's going to run out before you know it doing this podcast.
Yep.
But it's going to be a good time. I think it's going to be fun. We're going to have a podcast in the future talking all about it. If you want to get in, actually, on our own Blindside Football League, we're actually, obviously this is just a mock draft we're talking about right now, but a little bit later in the year, we are going to have a Blindside Football League for bragging rights, and we are going to give away one free entry into that league. Obviously, the league, all the money that we're collecting for it, and we're going to pay, obviously, for the one free team, all goes to the FF Help Maddie situation with Lad Davies so that they can get a diabetic alert dog for his daughter. They've already raised enough money, but obviously there's more costs obviously associated with the dog, food, and everything. So we still want to help the cause. So make sure you use the hashtag BlindsideHelpMaddie to be entered into the chance to get a free entry into our Blindside Football League. And I'll tweet out actually the mock draft that we're doing, so you can watch the mock draft as we draft. We have 8 good Blindside writers all involved in it, and 4 other writers that we've become friendly with over the last few months. Really good guys at different websites. So make sure you check that out. I guess that's all I really got. You got anything, Matt?
No, just reminding everybody to send in those questions. Make sure we get those in,
and not listen to 790 The Zone, right?
Yeah, the joking with the ALS was unfortunate there. Of course, it was, as they say, just a joke, and I'm not gonna bash their heads over it about it. People make mistakes, but it's a really tough disease. I had a friend who did pass away from it, and Gleason just came back with an awesome response to what they had said, basically accepting their apology completely, just being the bigger man, and showing you that there's a lot of awareness that needs to be increased on this terrible disease that a lot of people have to deal with. So just something I just wanted to bring up. Maybe go check it out, get the awareness up. There's no cure right now for it. It's a real tough thing to see people go through. Classy of Mr. Gleason to respond the way that he did. And unfortunately, those guys made a bad mistake, but it's actually good in a way because a lot of people are talking about it. So
yeah, definitely help bring awareness. Obviously not for the right reasons, but it's good that it's kind of brought that into the limelight. So I guess that does it for us. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Marcus Katkin. Follow Matt at Matt Dugal. Don't forget to keep sending your questions to hashtag BlindsidePod. We haven't had any for a couple weeks, so make sure you send us a couple so we can talk about them, guys.
We're gonna stop asking, damn it.
Yeah, we're gonna stop asking until someone starts sending them. But I guess that's it. I guess we're out.
See ya.
Yo, check it, it's my time. I'm rapping about Blindside Fantasy Football Podcast in this rhyme because they got me the inside scoop on Adrian Peterson. Yeah, he's that dude on Cam Newton. Yeah, they give me the news more on Megatron, Calvin Johnson if I stay tuned. On all quarterbacks, RG3 happens to be the fastest QB in the league. In fact, Colin Kaepernick is rider QB for them 49ers. It ain't hard to see, Some awesome people hosting, Marcus Katkin and Matt Dugal. You should be joining, skinny or fat, short or tall. Anyone can tune in to Blindside Football. Have a try, dude. Listen on iTunes or blindsidefootball.com too.